In this video, we're going to learn how to create a pagination like this using vanilla PHP and REST API. More on that after this intro. Before we begin this video is sponsored by Hostinger. If you're looking for a web host provider for your Shopify apps that you're working on, I highly recommend you use Hostinger. It is cheap and it is really awesome for Shopify app development. I personally use Hostinger for all of my Shopify app needs. Check the link in the description below to get started. So in today's video, we're going to follow the article that I wrote years ago. I believe I published this on December 2019. It was years ago, but I recently updated this. So as you can see, now it's saying that I published this or I worked on this on 22nd of August. So yeah, if you want to follow along, if you want to join me, then you can use this article. I'll put its link in the video description below, or you can just use the eye icon right over here. So with that being said, let's just scroll down and let me just show you what we're going to work on. But before we do that, as you can see here, we have the following REST API function. So this is the function that I use all the time to, do API calls to get the products, to create script tags, to delete script tags, to get the orders, and so on. So if you want to do, API calls using vanilla PHP, you can use this function. I'll put its link in the resources below. Why I keep saying resources below? I'm so used to it now. But anyway, I'm not joking around. Let me just scroll down, and this time we can just continue. We don't need to display the products because we already have here the products. So if you're wondering where I'm getting this or where I got this, I worked on this in the previous video. If you haven't watched it yet, it's the create private apps using vanilla PHP. So I'll put its link in the video description below, or you can just use the eye icon here again. Okay, so let's just skip all of this and proceed to the pagination button. So here we have the previous and the next buttons. I'll just copy the following buttons. Let me just go back to our project and let's open the product table, and I'll just paste that underneath of the table, just like that. So here we have the following attributes. We have the data info, that's for the page info that we're going to apply later on. And we have the data rel, that's previous and then next, and then data store, that's your URL. So I basically just echo out the value of store URL. So this variable is inside of the index.php. So it's coming from the get variable and then the key shop. Okay, so let's just save this. Let me just go back to our browser and refresh our Shopify app. And we should have the buttons underneath of the table. And there you go. Now we have the previous and then the next button. Now the next that we're going to do is to work on the page info. But the problem is the function, the REST API function. So if we get the headers, there's a problem related to the link element or the link key. Let me just show you what I mean. So let's just go back to our product table, and then I'm going to create a new variable underneath of the first product variable. So here I'll create a new variable and call it headers. And then I'm going to use the products variable and get the headers. So if you're wondering what is the headers, that's inside of the functions, the REST API function. So here we're returning the headers and then the data. So we're going to use headers this time. And then we can just echo out that headers. So print R is going to be an array. So print R and then headers. And that with semicolon and save the file. Let's go back to our app, refresh the page. And there you go. We should have the following response. And if you take a look in here, as you can see, we have the following link. But this key, its value, it's not the max H. This is a wrong value. So this is not the actual value of the link key. And what is inside of this array key is the page info for the next page. But it is surrounded by angle brackets, and later on we will use a function to extract this URL and apply it to a variable. So let's just go back to VS Code and fix that. So we need to get the value of that link. So the problem is inside of the functions.php, and that's here in the for each. So for each header in our headers, we are going to make it an array and pair it with its own key and value using the explode function. So if you're wondering what this means, it's basically, oh, for each this status, date. So we're going to loop through these keys: status, date, content type, X sorting hat, pod ID, and so on. And that's because by default, this header is like this. So let me show you what's the actual header. So say for example, we have the status, right? And then the value is 200 HTTP, something like that. And then next is the what is the next one? The date, so date, and then colon, and then the blah 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 date 2021. So we're using the explode to separate these values. So this is going to be the key, and this is going to be the value. But sometimes inside of this header, there's a value like HTTPS colon // So as you can see, there are 2 colons. So that means there's going to be a problem. So to fix that, we're going to apply a third argument, and it's going to be the limit. So we're going to limit this by 2. So if we honestly, let's just get rid of this. And if I save this, and if we go back to our browser, and if we refresh our page, this time the link key should have a value. So there we go. As you can see, now we have a lot of URLs. So now that we have the app setter into it, API stripe, and so on. And that's the reason why we don't have it last time. And that's because URLs, they also have colons. So inside of the link, there is a URL, and that's the page info. So here, now, as you can see, now we have the rel next. And behind this is the page info. So if you take a look at the inspect elements, as you can see, now we have in here the HTTPS, and then example development store, Shopify.com, and we have here inside of this, we should have the rel next. So this is the page info. So if you take a look, it's a URL, right? And there are query variables, limit for, and then page info. So we need this page info in our button. So to get that, we need to create a function to get the string inside of the angle brackets, because right now it's a HTML tag for some reason. So we're going to copy the function that I wrote here. So let me just scroll down, and we can use the following function. So this one. So string between. So basically what it does is it's going to look for a string, and then it's going to basically extract whatever is inside of those characters. I guess you can call it characters now, or string. So let me just paste that above everything here. So let me just save this, and let's just go back to the product table, and then we're going to use that. So let's just go back to the tutorial, and I'm going to copy the following code, and I'll paste that underneath of the echo statement, just like that. So let me just explain what is happening here. So here we have the headers variable, that's this one, and inside of it, there is a link key. It's this one. It's the link key. And inside of it, there is the URL with angle brackets. So we need to use angle brackets from and then to. If you're not getting what I mean, we're using here the starting and then the end of that string. So by default, the value of this is the URL, but we need to specify which part of the string you want to extract. So I want to start from the angle bracket, the starting angle bracket, and then the closing angle bracket. So anything between those angle brackets will be passed to the next page URL variable. And then we're going to parse that into a URL, and then inside of that variable, next page URL param is a query. So we're just getting the page info and then the limit for. So we just need the page info. We don't really need the limit. So underneath of the parse string, we have the following variable, page info, and we're getting the value from the value page info. So inside of the page info is the page info, which is this one. Okay, so now that we have the page info, we can just use that here in the button. So we're going to pass that to the next, and that's because the rel, if you don't remember, here, as you can see, the rel is next. So we're going to apply that in the next button. So here, PHP, then we're going to echo out the page info variable. Just like that. Save the file, and let's just go back to our browser, and next up, we're going to create the Ajax API. So here we can just copy everything. It's a long code, and I believe we're using here jQuery. So if you want, you can use fetch. so you don't have to use jQuery. But in this tutorial, I am using jQuery and I don't want to change it to a fetch. So here we need to create a pagination.php because we are using that here in Ajax. So basically, we're creating an event to these two buttons. So if we click this, we're getting the attributes data info, the rel, and then the store URL. And then we're going to use all of this variable in the Ajax. So as you can see here in the data, we're passing the data info, data rel, and then data store. And then in the success, we are checking if the response prev is not equal to empty. If it's not empty, then we'll change the value of data info of this button to the response. Otherwise, if it's empty, then leave it empty. Because if you reach the end of the page, obviously there won't be page info for that for the next page of that page. Does that make any sense? So it's just the same here in the next response. If it's empty, if it's not, then change the value of the data info. And here, if the response HTML is not empty, then we'll change the value of the product list table. So let's just change this to product underscore table. And then we're going to use that here in the table. I'm going to, okay, so we have an ID in here. Let's just change that to product table, just like that. And then I believe we are good now. So we can create a pagination.php file. I'm going to call this pagination.php. And then we're going to copy whatever is inside of the index.php. So here, I'll just get the functions.php as well as the shop URL and then the access token. And then we need to get the rel and then the page info. So create a new variable and call it page info. And it should be inside of the get. And we're going to use the page underscore info. Let me just double check. So here we are creating the page info, the rel, and then URL. So we just need the rel, honestly. So here you can just, you know what's supposed to be URL, not shop. Okay, next up is the rel. So rel, and then we're going to get that value from the rel key. Okay, so I think we're good now. Just double check everything, okay? Page info, rel, get rel, and then URL should be get URL. Okay, so save the file, and the next thing we're going to do is to use API to get the next product. So let me just scroll down, and we're done with that. We can just copy the following code. Copy that, go back to your code editor and paste it underneath of everything. So we're creating the following array. Now we're using the page info this time to tell the Shopify that, hey, I want to get the products based on this page info. So that means basically you're telling Shopify that I'm in this page right now, and then I want to get the next page. So that's the whole point of this page info thing. And then you're telling Shopify, oh, is it next or previous? I want to know if it's next or previous page. So you need to specify that as well using the rel. Okay, so we're using that array here. And after that, we're going to get the headers again. So let me just scroll down and we can just copy everything here. Let's just go back to our code editor and paste it in here. Okay, so we are getting the headers from the product headers. And then we're creating a variable called link array. And we're going to use that later on to check if there are more links inside of the headers. So here, as you can see, I have the following comment. Check if there are more than one links or page infos. Otherwise, just get the one link or page info. So we're using string position to get the comma. If there are commas inside of this variable, then we are going to explode that into one array. Because if there are two page infos, I believe they're going to be separated by comma. So we need to use that comma to separate those two page info. And then, otherwise, if there's only one page info, then I don't think there is a comma. So we can just basically get that value without exploding. Okay, so now that we have the link array and link, we're going to check this if there are, if the count is greater than 1. So let me just go back to the tutorial and see what's happening in here. So here, as you can see, we have the following code. We can just copy that. And let me just show you what it means. All right, so we're creating two variables for the previous link and then the next link. And then we're checking if the link array, which is this one, is greater than 1. If its length is greater than 1. If it is, then that means there are two page info inside of that variable. There's the page info for the next button and then the previous button. So we need to get those two page infos. So inside of it, we're doing the same process that we're doing here in the product table, which is this one, just to get the page info. And then we're passing all of that value to the priv link. So we don't have to manually type page info in our echo statement later. Otherwise, if the size of link array is less than 1, then we can just do the following. And here, as you can see, I'm doing another explode. So here, basically what I'm doing is I'm getting the rel. Is it the next? Is it for the next? Or is it for the previous button? Because if you reach the very end of the last page, obviously the only page info that you will receive is for the previous page. The Shopify API will not give you another page info for the next page. So because of that, we need to tell our app that the next button shouldn't have a page info. The merchants shouldn't be able to click the next button. This is the same whenever we are in the first page. Obviously, if you are in the first page, you should not be able to navigate to the previous page. So that's the whole point why I have to get the rel here inside of the headers link. So once we explode that, we are using the same function, string between, and we're getting the rel. So if we go back to our browser, and if we open our app, let me just show you what I mean. So here in the link element or key, we have the following rel, right? And we're using the same string between to get the next because it's between the double quotes. So that's the whole point why we need to use the same string between function. And then once we have that, we can just check if the value of rel is previous or next. If it's previous, then we need to make sure that the next link is empty. I want to make it empty. I don't want it to have a page info. So if the rel is next, we'll do the same thing. We need to make sure that the priv link is empty. Make sure that the previous button doesn't have any page info whatsoever. Okay, so now that we're done, we can just echo out those values. So we can just go back to our tutorial. Let's scroll down and then, oh yeah, we forgot the HTML. So here we can just copy this. We can go back to our code editor and paste it right over here. And then we can just customize this since we have a different output. So I'm going to copy everything here, table row, and I'll paste that here in the for each function, the second one. Oh, no. Supposed to be inside of the single quotes. Just like that. And then I'm going to fix this because we need to get the image, the title, the status, and so on. So we can just concatenate this variable with dot symbols and then single quote. Dot symbol, single quote. Just like that. And do the same thing to the rest of the variables. So here, we can just get rid of the PHP tag and then replace that with single quote and then dot symbols. And for this one as well, replace that with dot symbol and then single quote. And just get rid of the semicolon here. I don't think we need that. Okay, so that we have the image, the title, the next is the status. So let's just get rid of the PHP echo statement, replace that with single quote and then dot symbol. And then let's just get rid of the semicolon and then the closing of the PHP tag, replace that with dot symbol and then single quote. And I think we are good now, except we need to create the image variable. So I'm going to copy that here in the product table. I'll copy the following lines, paste that underneath of the for each or above the HTML variable. Let me just indent this back. Save the code, and the next thing that we're going to do, or the last thing that we're going to do, is to echo out everything. So we can just copy the following echo statement right over here. Copy that, go back to VS Code and paste that underneath of everything. Okay, so we can just save this and let's just go back to our app. And if I refresh this page, this time I should be able to go to the next page using our buttons. But you know what? I want to get rid of that header. So let's just go back to product table and I'll get rid of the echo statement here. We don't need that. Save the file and let's just refresh our app. Okay, so let me just try if this works. So I'll just click the next button. And as you can see, now I'm in the next page, but as you can see, I have now 5 products instead of 4. So we can just fix that by going back to pagination.php and set the limit to 4 instead of 5. Save it once again. Let's just go back to our app and go to the next page, and this time we should only have like 4. There you go. So as you can see, now I have 4 products. Let's just go to the next page once again, and there you go. As you can see, I have only 3 products, and I believe this is the last page. So if I click the next page, it should not display anything, or it should not move at all, or it should not replace anything at all. It should just stay the same. So let me just click it. As you can see, it's still the same. It didn't change. But if I click the previous button, okay, looks like we got an error. Okay, so we got an error. Undefined variable store URL. Okay, so I think there is a problem right over here. Supposed to be shop URL, not store URL. Okay, so let me just save this once again. Let's go back to our app, refresh the page, and this time we should be able to go to the next and then the previous page. Sorry about that. Okay, so let me just try this one last time. Go to the next page, change the product table. Let's just go to the previous page, the first page, and there you go. As you can see, now we have the same products. Now, if I click the previous button once again, it should not change anything at all because we are in the first page. So there you have it. That's how you create paginations for Shopify apps using vanilla PHP and then REST API. So you can do this as well, not just to product API, but also to order API, to customer API, basically anything that contains page infos. So with that being said, you can experiment and do the same steps and you'll be able to create paginations to other APIs as well, or Shopify APIs. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, let me know by hitting the like button, and subscribe for more Shopify app development tutorials. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below and I'll try my best to answer them, even if I'm kind of busy at this point. Yeah, kind of wanna, never mind. You know what, never mind. So you know what, bye.